The Incredibles is one of Pixar's greatest movies, but after analyzing the patterns in the studio's films, I've noticed that there's something off about this movie. The writing behind the character arcs and the themes are a little shaky. In Pixar films, the protagonist often has a character arc. If you don't know, a standard character arc is when a character moves from one belief to another belief throughout the story. Bob is the protagonist, so what is his arc? Usually, the seeds of the arc are sown in Act 1, and a character will tell them the lesson that they need to learn. The hero would have to abandon their first belief to fully embrace their second belief. A way that some people visualize this is want versus need. The want is what the character desires at the start of the story because they think it'll make them happy, but the need is the lesson they need to learn to find true happiness. The want is sacrificed for the need. Let's look at Bob's arc. Helen tells Bob that he needs to stop reliving the glory days from the past and focus on his family in the present. Her quote is, "Uprooting our family again so that you can relive the glory days is a very bad thing. But this, our family, is what's happening now, Bob, and you are missing this." End quote. In Act 1, Bob loses his job because he got angry that his boss wouldn't let him save someone. Rick says Bob's uncontrollable urge to save people when heroes are outlawed has caused his family to relocate multiple times already. At this point, Bob's need to be a hero is his flaw. If his arc was done traditionally, he would sacrifice being a hero in order to focus on his family. When the family is captured in the all is lost scene, Bob apologizes for focusing on the past instead of the present. His quote is, "I was so caught up in the past, you are my greatest adventure, and I almost missed it." The callback to missing the present shows that this is a direct reference to what Helen said at dinner. This would imply that he would end the story by sacrificing his want to be a hero for his need to focus on his family in the present. But that's not what happens. In Act 2, Bob gets to be an actual superhero and focus on his family, but he's working for Syndrome, so the hero stuff is fake. In Act 3, the Incredibles save the city and superheroes are accepted again, giving Bob his want and his need. He doesn't really change his beliefs, despite the writing implying that he would. Let's go back to Act 1, where the potential theme is stated. Helen argues that Bob not wanting to go to his son's graduation is a symptom of his flaw. He thinks graduating from 4th to 5th is dumb, but then he counters by saying that he wants Dash to compete in sports, which Helen objects to. At the end of the movie, Helen lets Dash do sports. So it's not that Bob doesn't care about his family. It seems like the parents just have two different ways of caring. Bob wants them to embrace their powers, while Helen wants them to be normal. To further support this, in the Life's Incredible montage, where Bob is spending time with his family, he and Dash are using their powers. So if anyone really has an arc here, wouldn't it be Helen changing her belief to allow the family to embrace their powers? Her going on a mission and letting the kids help by the end also seems to support that. So maybe Bob has a flat arc of convincing Helen to embrace superpowers. But the way the dinner scene is written, it feels like Bob is supposed to be the one that changes. Maybe another part of the conversation is where the theme is stated. When the kids hear the argument, Bob says that what's important is that he and Helen always stay united as a team. This could be argued to be Bob's character arc. He says they're united, but then he does superhero spy missions in secret. This shows that his belief is that he needs to do this alone. Him working alone also leads to Helen getting suspicious, which causes Bob to get captured, which causes the parts to nearly die from Syndrome's missiles. Bob was punished for his morally incorrect belief. At the start of Act 3, he tries to stop the robot alone at first to keep his family safe, but Helen convinces him that they all need to work together. Working together is what allows him to win in the climax. In the resolution, Bob and Helen's unity results in allowing Dash to race. Actually, if we go back even further to the Glory Days intro, Bob and Helen have another conversation that alludes to the theme. After they take out the robber, Bob says, "I don't need any help." Helen says, "We could share." Bob says, "I work alone." Helen tells him to be more flexible. And then to Buddy, he says, "Fly home, buddy, I work alone." Right before the final fight, he tells Helen to wait with the kids and says, "I have to do this alone." She has to convince him that they need to work together. On the surface, this sounds like an arc. Maybe this was obvious to others, but the reason I didn't realize it was the framing of the first two scenes. When Bob and Helen were talking about being flexible, it was playful banter. She wasn't actually criticizing his belief, and there was no consequence for him working alone. And then with Buddy, him trying to play sidekick is what caused the problem. If Bob had worked alone, Bon Voyage wouldn't have escaped and the train tracks wouldn't have blown up. Then in the present, he works with Frozone to moonlight as a hero, implying that working alone is no longer an issue for him. The fact that Bob's flaw was improperly set up, mixed with the dinner scene that implies that Bob's flaw is longing for the glory days, makes the character arc hard to understand. The evidence sends mixed messages. Other Pixar films aren't this difficult because their writing is better. Nevertheless, this is the best argument I can come up with for a character arc, which would double as a theme. There is one more thing that makes this a little different from other Pixar films. That is the way the antagonist is written. They are often in opposition to the hero's beliefs, or they are a dark reflection, showing what the hero will become if they keep their initial beliefs. In Toy Story 2, Woody initially believed that it was bad if Andy lost interest in him. Pete is a magnified version of that. He never had a kid and is bitter about it, so he'd do anything to get into a collection museum, even preventing Woody from returning to Andy. In Toy Story 3, Woody believes that kids will always love their toys. Lotso believes that kids will eventually stop loving their toys. In Cars, Lightning is selfish and doesn't care about others. Chick Hicks is a magnified version of this. In Ratatouille, Remy believes that anyone can cook. Ego believes that not everyone can cook. In Monsters University, Mike believes that he can be a great scarer even if he's not traditionally scary. Hardscrabble believes that his appearance means that he can't be a scarer. In Up, Carl initially is holding on to the past. Muntz is an example of the negative consequences of holding on to the past. Syndrome doesn't do that. If he was a dark reflection of Bob or his thematic opponent, he would believe that working alone is superior to working together, but that's not the case. He just wants to make everyone the same because he was treated poorly in the past for not having powers. Thematically speaking, he's irrelevant to the theme and Bob's arc. Despite this, I wouldn't rewrite Syndrome. I like his backstory and his motivation. It works for the plot. Time for the rewrite. To make this arc as best as it can be, Bob working alone should be established as a flaw in Act 1. I wouldn't want to put it in the glory days because that's meant to show how competent Mr. Incredible is, but it could work there. I'd definitely put it in the present when the heroes are outlawed. I'd also try applying this flaw to his parenting. Maybe he lets Dash join the track team in secret without consulting Helen. Her thinking he's cheating on her and the consequences of that would be kept since they already support this arc. I would also remove all the scenes that imply that Bob's flaw is that he wants to relive the glory days. Or I could keep them and do something even better. I could write out a flat arc where Bob believes that being a hero is good, even if society doesn't want him to be. Characters like Helen and Rick would oppose him. He would face negative consequences for his beliefs and be pressured to change, but eventually, his beliefs would prevail and his former thematic opponents would join him. I don't believe this was the intention of the actual screenplay based on the want versus need structure Pixar films use, and the lack of a theme-stated moment. For this flat arc, I would make the theme-stated moment a scene where Bob tells one of these two that he wants to be a hero even if society hates heroes. This would give Bob a positive character arc of learning to work with others, and a flat character arc of proving that being a hero is good regardless of society's reaction. This would also result in 2 themes. I don't like the misdirection of Bob's flaw being implied to be his focus on the glory days. It hides the true theme of the arc for no reason.